Good morning. Okay, let's talk about what's happening this week. Well, first, let's talk about what happened last week. You should have all participated in the peer review of the Lit Review. If for some reason you were unable to upload the reviews that you did, please send them to me in an email. I know that happened to a couple of people. There could have just been a glitch with BYU Idaho. We want to make sure that you get points, but also that the people that you reviewed have those reviews. So if for some reason you did a review and were unable to upload it, you need to let me know. You need to send me that, and you personally need to send that on to the person who was supposed to receive the review through that discussion board. Please make sure that you do that ASAP, because those people are waiting for their reviews so they can make the necessary revisions and get ready to submit their final Lit reviews on Saturday, just like everyone else. So please be courteous of that. I understand that some glitches occur, and I want to make sure that we all receive all the information we need and we receive the points. So if that was a problem, just let me know and we can go ahead and get that taken care of. Okay. Other thing that happened last week is you should have received approval from the IRB to begin your project. If you are one of the groups who has not received approval, please let me know. Discuss as a group though first if you haven't received approval. The IRB will email only the one person who submitted that IRB application and let them know whether it has been accepted or not. So that one person definitely needs to check all their emails, spam, all of those things, and make sure that you did not receive information before we move forward. In a lot of cases, you will receive your approval from the IRB from someone named Brother Sidney Palmer. So that can be a little confusing. If you're looking for an email that says IRB, it's not going to come. It's going to typically come from Brother Sidney Palmer. So search for that email as well and let me know if it is still missing. If it is still missing, you're going to need to contact the IRB and let them know. The IRB doesn't let me know whether you are accepted or rejected or that you even submitted an application. It seems that there may be a flaw in that process, but we can't evaluate and fix that process. We can, however, work within the confines that we have. So if there's a problem, let me know, and then we'll take the steps necessary to move forward. If you did receive IRB approval, then you should have sent out your survey by now. The survey needs to be sent out however way that you said it was going to be sent out, whether it's through a Facebook group, another social media site, or whether you're emailing it out. You need to have that out because this is our data collection week. If you look at the calendar, on the 14th, your results and discussion sections are due. So you have this week and whatever you had last week to collect your data. So, like I said last week, you will receive the majority of the responses within the first 48 to 72 hours. You'll see a sharp drop off in the number of responses after that, but then you will send some sort of reminder, either another post or another email, just notifying people that, hey, this is still available. If you haven't participated already, please participate. You hopefully we'll see just a quick uptick in the number of responses for the next about 24 hours after that, and then you can go ahead and close the survey after that, because it's very unlikely that you're going to get more responses. Let me know how those responses are coming in. If you could just have one group member send a quick email or text and let me know how those responses are coming in. You need at least 30 responses to be able to do the data analysis. So we want to make sure that those are coming in. If you are posting on social media, it's very likely that you're going to receive significantly more than 100 responses. Well, significantly more than 30. Usually we see somewhere near 200 responses. So just let me know how that is going. If you could send a quick email, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, that's where we were last week. The other thing that we need to cover for last week is those personal application check-ins. I'm starting the check-ins. I have started the check-ins, and I am looking for at least one personal application post posted between February 24th and February 29th. If you do not have a post for that week, you will receive a 0 for the second check-in. If you receive a 0, I will send you an email notifying you that you received a 0 on that portion of the assignment. If you receive no contact from me, then assume that you receive full credit. You will eventually begin to see the grades for those personal application assignments. I know that it is a little bit unnerving that there's this big chunk of your grade and I say that I'm looking at it, but you see no proof that that's happening. We have not come up with a good way. We have not come up with a good way of dealing with the personal application assignments. Last semester, we entered grades as they came in. So we entered points for each check along the way. Because of the way the gradebook is set up, if I do that, when I enter your grade, for example, if you got 20 out of 20, I believe that's what it is, 20 out of 20 or 30 out of 30 on that first check, it shows up as if you received 20 or 30 out of 140 points possible, which makes it so the entire 140 points starts calculating into your grade and you are automatically failing. Students like that even less last semester than not knowing how they were doing on the assignment. So I will email you if there is a problem with the assignment. If there is no problem with the assignment, with the check-in, then you will not get an email. Assume if you haven't heard from me about that assignment in particular that you are doing awesome. You will all start to receive emails about that personal application assignment, like what sections you need additional postings in towards the end of the month, probably the week of March 23rd. You'll start to get emails about that saying, hey, there are 12 total posts. Of the 12 total posts, you have 10. You need to fulfill the requirements in each of these categories. You've fulfilled requirements for categories 1 and 2, but are deficient in category 3. Something to that effect. You will receive that email probably, I would say, the week of the 23rd, potentially the week after, just so you have time to get that in before the class ends. I want to make sure that you have all the information as we go forward with that. Okay, let's talk about this week. This week is JASP, yay! Hopefully you've all downloaded JASP and have a good idea of how to turn it on. It is fairly straightforward. You will need to follow the video that is posted in the class. I believe that that will help you. In my opinion, that video will help you. I'm looking at the instructions right now. It should go pretty line by line through this. There are 10 steps, that you need to complete, and I believe the video goes through all 10 steps. You will see then in step 3, it says write a few sentences that describe what you found interesting about the results. Okay, this is where we're going to diverge a bit from that. This is meant to serve as a practice for your results section. If all I ask you to do is write a few sentences that describe the interesting things, next week when you start writing your results, you're going to be really confused. And you're going to be asking a lot of questions and be frustrated. At least that's what I would do if I were you in that situation. So the way I want you to treat this assignment is as if this was the data that came in for your project. I want you to go through the steps necessary to complete the results section. If you look at that announcement that was posted on a day that I can't remember, but I'll tell you really quick. If you look at the announcement that was posted on February 18th, it's listed as JASP Help. You'll notice that inside that announcement is a document all the way at the bottom that says JASP and Data Analysis Example. If you click that, this is what I want your writing to look like for this paper. The reason for that is this is a really good practice for you when you are doing the results section next week. Your results should look something like this. It should cover these main points. Everything should be labeled like this. You need to include all of the statistics within the text unless you are including charts and tables. You'll notice that the example provided uses charts and tables, but there is an explanation associated with them. So the expectation is not that the reader has to really understand statistics and be able to interpret those charts and tables themselves, but that the actual chart and table is there to provide backup to the text. For example, in the final paragraph on page 5, you'll see that there is table 2, and it is answering research question number 2. There is an explanation of what is happening in that table up here in the text. It starts with dental caries alone were not measured in the data provided. However, researchers can make predictions based on the DMFT variable provided. Decayed, missing, and filled teeth and so this is where you would put the exact statistics with total health spendings per person in US dollars. And then this is where you're putting the Pearson, which is listed as R, and then the p-value. And then this is where you interpret. So it will make more sense when you look at this. It's on page 5, that paragraph. It goes through and it's listing R and then the value associated with R, and then P and the value associated with P. And then in parentheses, it says see table 2. This indicates that you are providing some sort of context or explanation of what the table means. But if someone wanted more information, they're welcome to look at the table themselves. Okay, so it goes through that, and then it says, indicating that as healthcare spending increased, the number of decayed, missing, or filled teeth decreased. So that is what you need to do. You need to look at what it says in that table and make some sort of interpretation. You'll need to do the same thing in your results section. You will need to look at the statistics that you have and provide some sort of explanation of those statistics. You can't just spit them out and assume that the reader will understand. A majority of people have a limited understanding of statistics, and so you kind of need to guide them as you're interpreting those results. In some cases in your paper, you won't have as much room as you think. So including an entire table that you run in JASP or Excel, whatever, isn't going to be appropriate because you just won't have room. So you may include an interpretation of those findings. You may include the statistics like you see in paragraph 2, where it shows, or in that paragraph where it shows the R and P values, and then say see table 2, appendix A. So if someone wanted more information, they could flip ahead or flip forward to appendix A and see the full table, but they're not required to have that full table in order to understand the results. Hopefully that makes sense. It will make more sense when you look at this document listed in that announcement posted on the 18th called JASP Health. It's just right at the bottom, a link to an example called Week 9 paper JASP and data analysis example. If you look at that and you have questions, please let me know. I don't want you to steal the wording that I used exactly, because that would be plagiarism. And as we talked about last week, I know how you write and I know how I write. So I will know that you plagiarized because maybe your writing's more coherent than mine. But use that kind of verbiage as your example. Use how that's set up with the statistics interspersed throughout. If you have any questions about incorporating statistics into ABA format, I highly recommend doing a quick Google search. I'm happy to answer your questions as well, but Google has a lot of really good examples of how to include APA statistics within text, because there is a certain way you need to do it. Like if you are presenting a chi-square, it goes one way. If you are presenting a Pearson's correlation coefficient, it goes another way, standard deviation, things like that. But if you are saying something happened, or the statistics show something happens, or statistics indicate, however you choose to do that, you need to include that information there. Like I said, in some cases you don't need the entire table. It's not essential to understanding, but you do need to include that information in those little parentheses, just like the example and just like any examples you will see when you search on Google for how to incorporate APA style statistics into a paper. There's a lot of information there, a lot of it out of the University of Washington that is really useful. But if you have problems, let me know. Okay, that's where we are with JASP. JASP should not take an exceptionally long time. I would say writing the paper and might take more. Writing the paper and getting the statistics or getting the tables to transfer may take a little bit more time. If you watch the video, I believe I show you the easier ways to get those to transfer. Okay, now let's go on to the final lit review. The final lit review is due on Saturday. I hope that you are all really excited that it is almost over. As I said in my weekly email, I am happy to provide you with only one review of this final lit review. So incorporate all of those revisions that your class members told you to do, and then if you would like, I'm happy to review a draft. The thing is that if you would like that draft reviewed, it has to be submitted by tonight. I will get it back to you by Thursday night so that you have both Friday and Saturday to make those revisions. If you look at if I send you your paper back, there is going to be a lot of blue and red in it. And it is going to seem very harsh. So please do not take it personally. If I go through it, I'm going to identify all of the things that I think don't make sense, or a good portion of the things that I don't think make sense. And I am potentially going to rewrite a couple of sentences. It is just meant to be guidance to you, helpful guidance, so that when you submit this, you are submitting something excellent. I think you have a unique opportunity to turn a good paper into an excellent paper with this. So when I make those criticisms, I'm not saying that your work is bad. I'm just telling you, this is what we need to do to take your work up to the next level. If something is particularly concerning, I will make a note of that and tell you that this absolutely must be fixed. In most cases, I'll go through and say things like, confusing sentence, please revise. One of the things that you're not required to do, but I highly recommend that you do, is that you read this lit review out loud. You're going to feel ridiculous when you do it, but read it out loud and you will catch some of those mistakes. The same thing applies if you were to have someone else read it out loud to you. That is also a really good way to have those mistakes fixed, because as you read it out loud, you're going to automatically correct some of those issues. Not all, but some. When someone else reads it out loud, they're not going to be able to automatically correct those issues. And so they're going to become blatantly obvious pretty quickly. And that gives you a really good opportunity to say, hey, the verbiage here is not good. I need to adjust it. Or where was I going with that? There's no point. Or why do I not have transition sentences? These are really good ways to identify some of the things. But a couple of things about those final lit reviews. Please make sure that as you're going through, there's a logical sequence of events that is taking place. So go from the broadest idea, a general definition of whatever your topic is, and then filter down. Make sure that you're using headings kind of like you would do in an outline, so that you know, well, this is the section where I'm talking about screen time and health. And this is the section where I'm talking about screen time and nutrition. And this is the section where I'm talking about screen time and exercise, or whatever your topic may be. It will just help you keep things in their buckets so that you don't have this information all interspersed and not making any sense. Also remember, each paragraph can include citations from multiple sources. So if you were talking about screen time and health, or screen time and sleep, then you could take information from Smith and Jones and, you know, all those different people and mix them together, because they should all be saying relatively the same thing. If you have something contradictory, you can say other researchers citation believe this, however, research done after by this person indicates that it may be something else. Find a way to incorporate all that information into 1 or 2 paragraphs. You don't need a paragraph for every single source. Also remember, this isn't a summary. You're pulling out those main points, you're synthesizing them, and you're finding ways to talk about how they mesh with the larger body of research. So you will need to pick out just the most important details from each of those studies. That is one of the things I've seen in the lit reviews that I've reviewed so far. You don't need every single detail. You need the important details. So maybe you don't need to say 500 people were surveyed, 300 were males, 200 were female, you know, like all of those details. But what you do need to say is, in a study of 500 people, the following results were shown. And this indicates that whatever. Another thing about the lit review is, remember, this lit review is eventually going to serve as a justification for your new research study. So you're going through all of this, and eventually in the last paragraph, you're going to come to the conclusion that further research is needed on this topic for the following reasons. Maybe a lot of research, maybe you're researching flu vaccines, and a lot of flu vaccine research has been done on the population in general, but not a lot of research has been done on the 18 to 25 age group, and that is the one that you are interested in looking at. So you say, well, significant research has been done on this topic. Very little of that research has focused on this age group. This study aims to fill that gap. by answering the following research question, and list your research question. Your research question should be the end of your lit review, because this whole lit review is building to the research question. You've explained the background, you've provided justification for this new study, included your research question, and then in the final report, the methods will come next. So you're going to have explained it, justified it, have a research question, and then you're going to launch into what you did and why you did it. So the methods is what you did, how you did what you did, and why you did it. The results is what you found, and then the discussion section is going to be an interpretation of those results and an explanation of how they fit into the larger body of research. So if your results end up contradicting previous research, you're going to say that, and you're going to provide some explanation. Maybe you oversampled one group, undersampled another, maybe you had a really low response rate, maybe research hasn't been done on this topic in several years, and because this is health, things change quickly. Maybe previous research, if you're looking at screen time, focused primarily on cell phone and computer use and did not take into consideration tablets and smartwatches, which may have some of those same issues associated with them. So start thinking about that. Start thinking about what are the holes in the existing research, why is my study needed, and then how does that fit? This is the last paragraph of this lit review needs to be your launching off point into your final report as a whole. So I'm not really sure what she said, sorry. Okay, so that is what we are doing. We are getting ready to start writing that final report. So this week, finish collecting your data. I say close those surveys by Saturday so you have adequate time to write those results and discussion sections. So this Saturday, the things you have to do: JASP practice. I say please don't spend more than an hour and a half on this. If you're spending more than an hour and a half, either there's something wrong with how you are understanding JASP and we may need to evaluate that, or you are spending too long writing. It's not going to be the great American novel. You have an example of how it needs to be written. Borrow from it, but don't plagiarize. Every single sentence cannot be a sentence that I wrote. So use good judgment on that. Our final lit reviews are due this Saturday. If they are late, you will get a 0, which is not great because I believe they are worth 200 points. And then you are closing those surveys. The next week, you are starting to analyze the data. Okay, one thing with the data analysis, you are more than welcome to work with your group members or a group member, if not everyone wants to do it, to do that data analysis. In a lot of cases, it is really helpful to have someone to bounce ideas off of with that data analysis. I think in most things that we do in public health, it is really, really helpful to have someone to bounce ideas off of. But especially when we're looking at this data analysis, because you're going to get to a point and say, did I answer the research question? Am I doing this right? And the best person to answer that question is someone that is in the data themselves. I am happy to answer that question, but I don't have the information that a group member would have and say, well, I actually approached it from this way. You have kind of a collaborative effort. I know that when we work online, it is really easy to stay in our bubble and just worry about ourselves. And it is really hard to bring other people in because they may not have the same level of understanding or attention to detail or work ethic or any of those things that make group work difficult. However, as someone that works in public health, you have to be able to work with other people, even if it is uncomfortable and it does not go the way that you would like. I'm not asking that you write your discussion and results section with another person, but I think it is very useful to have a conversation with someone else who is looking at that same data set as you do this. In public health, we talk to other people every day to get our stuff done. People that may not be as cooperative as we would hope. But some of those ideas will help. I'll give you an example of that. As I said, I manage the County Health Department where I live. We have asked our clerical staff to provide a very specific form to all patients who are going to see a nurse for an immunization. All patients across the board. I want them to look something up in a system and say, is this person deficient on any immunizations, including influenza? If so, print it out, highlight it, and give it to the patient along with a binder that has information on the vaccinations, and give it to the nurse. The purpose behind that is so that the nurse does not have to spend her time explaining to the patient and trying to convince them why they should get this immunization that they don't have for whatever reason. When we look at this from a fees perspective, it's a good idea because people that are told that they're missing an immunization are more likely to pay for said immunization. When we look at it from a clinical perspective, it's a good idea because the more people that know they need a vaccination are the more people that are going to get the vaccination, and then we have a higher rate of community immunity. But when you look at it from a clerical perspective, it creates more work and it makes them extremely angry that they have more work. So we have been having these discussions back and forth in my office the last week as we try and come up with a process. We have some people who are very disgruntled and do not want to be cooperative, and we have some people who can see a larger public health vision behind it, and we don't really have anything in the middle. However, as we've been having these conversations, we see that everyone is starting to come to the middle and develop a greater understanding. We see the clinical side coming and saying, well, maybe we don't need it every single time. In certain exceptions, we don't need it. And they wouldn't have seen that unless they had been talking to the clerical staff. The clerical staff is slowly, ever so slowly, migrating to see that what we do is not process patients to go see a nurse. What we do is we serve the public, and how we serve the public is providing them with all the health information that we have access to and presenting it to them in an easy to understand format. The same is going to happen as you talk to your group members about that data that comes in. Everyone's understanding is going to be enriched because you had that conversation. You may not agree. You don't have to write the paper together, so you don't have to agree. But just that simple act of having that conversation gets the dialogue going and gives additional perspective to people on both sides. You start to see why your group member is analyzing it this way, even though you're using the same research question, and they start to see why you're analyzing it this way. And in the end, you just have a larger picture of the data. So I highly, highly recommend that you do that, because this is something that you're going to do in public health practice all the time. If I have learned nothing in my 10 years in public health, it is that we spend a lot of time talking in public health. We potentially spend more time talking than actually doing. So we need to be prepared to talk to each other, to write, to email, because that is how we communicate. That is how decisions are made. And then that is ultimately how these programs are rolled out to implement public health initiatives. So talk to each other, please talk to each other, treat each other as coworkers, as colleagues, please, because this is a really good opportunity where you can do that without being worried about getting paid, getting enough hours, all of those things. This is really good opportunity. If you have any questions this week, let me know. I apologize that this video was so long, but best of luck with JASP and the final lit review. If you would like a review, please get it to me by this evening and I will get it to you by Thursday. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email or text me. My phone number is 972-955-5320. My email address is sukera@byui.edu.